Well, hello. Nice to have everyone here. This is our live show. It is Torn Tuesday. Once again, welcoming you all to our humble little corner of the internet. Welcome, everybody. This is the fan portal called theonering.net, and we are forged by the fans and for the fans of J.R.R. Tolkien. We're here to talk about Rings of Power and the Fall of Numenor and cool new behind the scenes things. And oh my goodness, I just put a tweet out to the universe. Allow me to introduce myself very quickly. My name is Clifford Broadway, and I'm a writer and content provider for theonering.net. We do a lot of things at The One Ring, including our active message boards, a really dynamic Discord server that I encourage you all to join and check out. And we're on all these social channels today, broadcasting live here, our Torn Tuesday Spectacular, from my own humble living room in Los Angeles, California. Our co-host and producer behind the scenes today, if you're wondering where is Justin, my usual very friendly and very vociferous co-host is unable to be joining us because he's lost his voice. It's some kind of a very, very special laryngitis that is hopefully going to resolve itself very soon. In the meantime, let me host and bring you guys in. We're going to have phone calls on our live chat coming in 530-64-FRODO. That's right. That's our hotline. Justin can at some point put it up on the screen. And you guys who are with us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and streaming, Instagram, all these other places where we are, I welcome you all. Welcome, live audience, and you can chat with us. We're going to get messages on the live chat, and they'll be relayed from Justin's production studio, and they'll get relayed over to me. And then we can chat also. We'll be responding to you right here live on all the social channels. Myself, I'm going to put my focus on the YouTube experience, and I'm so glad to have you all here. Welcome. So here's what happened to me today. Just before we get into all the stuff about the behind the scenes, that Prime Video has been very, very cool surprises coming from the BTS content, and it is available as you rewatch and revisit season 1 of the Rings of Power. But before we get to that, I had the experience of, going to the matinee earlier today. Why? Because Nicholas Hoult, that's right, the man who played J.R.R. Tolkien himself, Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy co-starring with Ralph Fiennes in a new feature film. And I was kind of curious to check this out because Nicholas Hoult is a remarkable actor, and I love his performance in the Dome Korokovsky film Tolkien. So I wanted to go check out what's happening with The Menu. And The Menu is quite an interesting, unexpected thriller and a really high-end take on the culinary arts. And it's kind of like Knives Out. It's also kind of psycho. This movie is really kind of psycho. And when you go in, ladies and gentlemen, be prepared for a powerhouse performance from Ralph Fiennes. And quite honestly, Nicholas Hoult is somebody else altogether. You would never, ever watch this movie and think, wow, he'd be a good J.R.R. Tolkien in a life story of him. You would never think that because he's such a psycho, such a crazy different character. Well done, everybody, to the writers and the director and the team who did The Menu. If you guys are really interested in seeing Nicholas Hoult in his next feature, go check it out. And now the other thing that is remarkable big news here in the world of J.R.R. Tolkien fandom is that there's always another, it seems every year there's another posthumous publication of some wonderful works by Tolkien that has never been seen before. Like just last year, it was The Nature of Middle-earth, edited by the remarkable Tolkien scholar, Carl Hostetter. What an amazing job on The Nature of Middle-earth. I have my copy right here adjacent to me on the end table. But this shining new baby boy just arrived at the bookstores. And if you've been watching Tolkien Twitter or anybody on socials on Facebook, you'll realize everyone's talking about this, edited together by Brian Sibley, who is a really, really dear friend of the OneRing.net. We've known him for many years, and I've personally interviewed him for my feature documentary, Ringers. Brian Sibley also published some really interesting behind-the-scenes books about the making of the Hobbit trilogy and the original Lord of the Rings trilogy from New Line Cinema. But now he's brought his editorial powers to the Fall of Numenor. And in a quick nutshell, and I'm sure that other friends of ours online, like Matt, Nerd of the Rings, and other content providers have already given you a very in-depth look at the Fall of Numenor, but I'll break it down for simplicity's sake for the newbie audience who may have just heard of it for the first time. From the inside dust jacket, it's remarkable that Professor Tolkien had said famously, describing the Second Age of Middle-earth as, quote, a dark age, and not very much of its history is or need be told, unquote. Now that's interesting. At that point in his career, Professor Tolkien had all the Second Age stuff backburnered while he was literally working on the massive details and the world building that would become The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, as the late Third Age tales. So the Second Age stuff, it seems, academically speaking, put somewhere else in terms of importance, because it says here, for many years, readers had to be content with only the tantalizing glimpses of it found within the pages of LOTR and its appendices, which Amazon Prime licensed. They licensed those appendices, which included the forging of the Rings of Power, the building of the Barad-dûr, and the rise of Sauron, and the last alliance of elves and men. So all the book's content here is a new amalgamation, a new reassortment from different sources, where Professor Tolkien had given us Second Age details, the Silmarillion, the 2 sections in the back of the Silmarillion, and then a subsequent publication, Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle-earth, and then expanded upon in Christopher Tolkien's magisterial 12-volume The History of Middle-earth. And that is probably one of the more daunting things that an average fan who just wants to read a good novel and read a good story might not take the academic deep dive that leads you into reading all the unpublished drafts and all those versions and semi-versions that Professor Tolkien began and then abandoned. And for all those reasons why, people don't dig into it very much. That's why they made this book. So for those of us who have not read and absorbed Unfinished Tales and the Silmarillion, and really, for those of us who haven't taken the time, because it's a massive effort, to go into the 12-volume History of Middle-earth, here's your solution. And the publishers have got Alan Lee back on board. Thank you, Houghton Mifflin. I mean, wow, look at this. This is really beautiful stuff. William Morrow, an imprint of HarperCollins Publishers. Excuse me, I guess I shouldn't say Houghton Mifflin anymore. So there's some beautiful plates. There's some stunning black and white sketches. Oh man, look at this. On page 53, the first ships of the Numenorians appear off the coasts. And the little, I don't know if I can get the camera to show this, but this is so beautiful. There is Meneltarma in the distance. And holy Toledo, ooh, there's the ring verse. Sauron forges the ring. On this page, suddenly it's red, deep blood red ink. It's like the only surprising splash of color that comes at you. It's appropriate until you hit these full color pages. I don't want to spoil too much, but look at this on page 29. This beautiful full color plate from Numenor right here. I mean, Alan Lee is a master, an absolute master of Tolkien artwork. This is a stunning edition. And ideally, we should just say that it's more digestible. And that's the point, is that it's been restructured, taking various sources from all these different places, and right here, as it says inside the cover, adhering to the timeline of the tale of years in the appendices. Now, I know that stuff really well, because ever since I was an 11-year-old boy, I have been digging into the appendices and reading through the tale of years and measuring the hundreds and hundreds of years that it has taken. Wow. I got to tell you, this is the most digestible and interesting assortment of scholarship. But it's not just about, finding scholarship. It's about having the story presented to you chronologically in a sweeping canvas of history, and it suddenly makes more sense. It's just that simple. For, in terms of cognitive psychology and how we absorb this information, this is the way to go. This is the way to go. If you don't know what to get anybody for Christmas, and you've got a Tolkien fan in your family, you've got a Ringer fan in your club, in your school, at your workplace, anyone would love this. This is probably one of the more ideal things. But I need to tell my mom right now, don't buy me a copy for Christmas. I've already got one, Mom. So please don't send me another for, because they don't know what to get me for Christmas. What do I get Clifford for Christmas? Well, we're going to get him the latest Tolkien book, right? Yeah. Well, that's always the way every holiday. But wow, this is so fascinating. Even for example, look at the appendices. Get out your copy of The Return of the King right now. Everybody, you got one at home. I've got several copies of The Lord of the Rings in triple volumes in one volume, and I've got Return of the King, multiple paperbacks up there. But when you look inside these pages, right here, they take the born and death dates where these kings and rulers, it says year 2251, death of Tar Atanamir. Then Tar Ankaleman takes the scepter. Rebellion and division of the Numenorians begins. About this time, the Nazgul, or ring wraiths, slaves of the Nine Rings, first appear. And with this little big print title chapter, it is a title chapter that is familiar because it's a full index entry from the Tale of Years. And so Brian Sibley brings you into chronological order of when the kingdom begins, when the monarchs, the rulers, are behaving in a certain way, then following what relationships they have with the elves, and then building ships that take them to the shores of Middle-earth. And then everything is in order. And when certain rulers die, you move on to this next section, and wow, it says here, thus the bliss of Westernesse became diminished, but still its might and splendor increased, for the kings and their people had not yet abandoned wisdom, and if they loved the Valar no longer, at least they still feared them. Ooh, that's good stuff. Thank you, Professor Tolkien. If they didn't love the Valar any longer, at least they still feared them. But that would soon change. That psychology and that spirituality would change quickly, perhaps, or, with the rapidity that Sauron needed. And certainly it pieces together everything that we're going to see over the next 4 seasons of the Rings of Power. It is no accident that the publishers were smart enough to put out this. This is actually kind of like, believe it or not, it has nothing to do with Prime Video or Rings of Power, but I would imagine this volume, The Fall of Numenor, it would probably be the perfect accompaniment for any fan who really wants to get down into the details and the real nitty-gritty of the world building of the Second Age. For a companion volume, I don't think I could recommend anything better. To watch the Rings of Power and to have the actual words of Tolkien to back it up so that you can piece together the timeline, and then you get a better idea of what kind of time compression and interesting changes that they're dynamically making. The adaptation itself may not reflect what you're reading in The Fall of Numenor, but if you read this book alongside with watching the show, I can imagine you'd get a much clearer understanding of some of the departures that the writers and producers are making, while trying to fold in and remix actual elements of the story that makes cognitive sense to all of us. So highly recommended, really good stuff. Yes, Otaku Senpai says, parts of my appendices are falling apart. Hey, Terry, good to have you. Welcome. William, welcome to the show. Iravandi says, I'd actually wondered if the timing of the release of this book was intentional to go with Rings of Power. Or, Iravandi, I don't think there are any uh accidents. Or, what did V for Vendetta say? He said, there is no coincidence, only the illusion of coincidence. Hmm. Hmm. So yes, indeed, that's probably quite true. That's probably never been truer than today. So it's really good. Megavan and Pipske. Hello, Pipske. Lovely to have you here, my dear. So if you guys have questions or comments about the Fall of Numenor, we're going to get really, really, really into this, and I'm going to try to tear through this and talk more in detail. Really cool that Brian Sibley worked on the 1981 BBC radio serialization of Lord of the Rings, and now all these years later, he's still got his brilliant approach and his acumen, all of his lifetime of working with Tolkien and adapting Tolkien, and he brings his editing and his acumen to the Fall of Numenor. So here you go, everybody. The best Christmas gift you're going to get for any Tolkien fan in your family. Now, moving on, looking at the telly, you pull up Prime Video, and you might be surprised. I don't see anything about behind the scenes. Where do I find it? Rings of Power has brought a lot of stuff into, this viewing experience. The making of the Rings of Power. You want to find it, you got to play it on the X-ray function. It is a function that happens when you're in Prime Video watching any show or a movie, and then when you hit pause, you'll see, oh, look, there's an X-ray, and it includes the names of the actors, the dramatis personae, the players who are on stage are suddenly revealed, and other stuff. But it's really, really, really cool, because if you want to get into the making of the Rings of Power, it comes up. Here you go. Beautiful, Justin. Thank you, Justin, for showing us this graphic. You can also watch this stuff on Amazon.com. Literally, without the X-ray playback, I'm just using a Roku. It's not that sophisticated. I know everybody else out there has a Fire Stick or Apple TV. Me, I'm pretty basic. I'm just using a Roku, but I've been using the X-ray function. It's pretty cool, really quite interesting. But you go to Amazon.com and it shows up looking like that, like these screens. And there's Justin showing us right through. And look, microphones, lights, tech people, hardcore. You want to find out the real stuff. This is lifting the curtain and taking a little peek at the way the sausage is made, as they say. So taking a look around, how is the sausage made? Well, it includes a lot of hard work under very intense circumstances. Well, people were under COVID lockdown, and the production also was facing the pandemic with lockdowns and restrictions. It made things more difficult than it ever needed to be. And you might get a whole new appreciation for the hardworking crew, the greens department, the people who brought in the greens, the plants. You know who I respect? And all my admiration to the carpenters and the painters and the people who come in with their brushes to distress the armor and distress the things to make it look lived in, to make Middle-earth look organic. And the costumers, the horsemen and the horsewomen, the trainers, the animal trainers, the sword fighters, the fight choreography, the stunties, the stunt people. What's best about this, really, is that you don't need a Prime account at all. You can get access to this right on the internet. Go straight to the Amazon.com, watch that stuff for free without needing to have any Prime account. You don't have to drop a dime at all on that stuff. So I'm excited by all this. Look, I honestly thought that it would require Prime. No, actually, yes, Wheat-Bix is reminding us that there are thousands of plants grown out of season for the TV show schedule, right? Where's the physical media? XOXO 2000. I like that idea. Where's the physical media? You know what? We'll get to that conversation some other point. But a lot of streamers, Netflix, HBO Max, and certainly Prime Video, they're not really much into that. They're not much into releasing Blu-ray or 4K ultra high def of their shows. And it would be really awesome if they did, because I would be that guy at the store purchasing, the Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, and the Rings of Power. And I want to have that physical library copy with all the goodies on it. I love that stuff. I would go and buy The Sandman on hard copy, Blu-ray or 4K. I would buy that. I would. I'm that kind of guy who likes to have, believe it or not, my own personal copy of books and media. I got to be honest, folks. I'm not much into gross consumerism, but because the Criterion collection is half off at Barnes & Noble, I've been going a little bit nuts buying movies for my own personal collection. And look at that. Here's Rebecca, Alfred Hitchcock's Best Picture winner. The Red Shoes, amazing film from Powell and Pressburger. And even more. Oh, well, hello, British animation fans. Watership Down, adaptation of Richard Adams' stunning novel. All this stuff half price. Why? Because the streaming services are not always going to be there. And if the streaming services are not always going to be there, you're going to want to have your own physical copy. And I'm getting word from little birdies that land on the windowsill. A couple of spies came flying in. A little birdie started whispering something in my ear and said, there's a full-length making of documentary series that is being planned for Emmy season next August. That's right. It's never too early. Honestly, I'm laughing because it's kind of true. It's never too early to start campaigning for your primetime Emmys. I mean, I walk down the road here on Hollywood Boulevard, and there's a giant billboard for Stranger Things, and it says FYC, for your consideration. Back in the early 80s, we used to think that was a band called Fine Young Cannibals, but I'm dating myself terribly. I'm really not going to do that. But for your consideration, FYC is where the studios spend a lot of money and a lot of effort, a very focused and intense marketing campaign that lasts for a long time, bringing attention to Emmy voters on their project, their television film, or their television series. But the rumors that are coming in, look at that. Look what we have here. The Wheel of Time, season 1. This is a nice antidote. Thank you for showing us that. The Boys, holy cow. You know what? Maybe there's promise in the air. If Amazon is letting us have The Boys, seasons 1 and 2, and having other hit fantasy show like The Wheel of Time, and that was a hit for them, be critical of it or not, it was still a hit for them. But now they've got physical media that they are offering for some of their bigger shows. So that means there is a distinct promise. I would call that an apple in front of the cart horse. They're dangling that apple in front of us. I'm down. Okay. I just don't want, to sit here and not be able to watch, the shows that I want to watch if the streamer platform decides we no longer have that deal with that production company. We're going to take it off the platform. Oops, there goes all the stuff that you were enjoying on Netflix or on Prime Video. And that I really don't like that at all. The idea that as a consumer, as a librarian of sorts, I consider myself a curator of my own library. What do I want? I want hardcover, beautiful editions of J.R.R. Tolkien. And that's why I spend that effort and that money developing and curating my own library. And I consider that not just for books, but also for other media as well. I'm the curator of my own personal collection, as are all of you. All of you have such excellent taste in Tolkien and fantasy and science fiction. You want to curate your own collection. Why else would I be running around and buying a copy of David Lynch's The Elephant Man? Because John Hurt was one of my favorite actors, and this is one of the best films that's ever been made by David Lynch, and I love John Hurt, and I want a physical copy. Now, we've got other interesting things. Look at this. Very recently, there was an awards, not just the Emmy Awards, but it was the Clio Awards. And that is an industry award for marketing and advertising. And he's showing some clips from the beautiful burning hot molten iron that was being used for that teaser piece. Remember when Prime Video months and months and months ago gave us a simple teaser of what was the title of the Rings of Power. And this is where we got to go visit the forge, where it was 7,000 degrees molten heat. And they had these high-speed cameras floating over this molten wood, metal being poured over this. This remarkable imagery was so effective as practical effects. Nothing was CGI. Nothing in it was CGI at all. Pure visual effects. And it took a lot of hardcore effort to make something so detailed and brilliant. And ironically, it was not even used in the series at all. Look at that. That is real water, not particle effects. That is real water over steaming, intense, burning, molten metal that they just poured out of the... It's just stunning. Well, because it was so cool, they won the Clio Award, which was for the best marketing piece. It was I think the award was for best short form marketing piece for an online teleseries. It says right there. Yes, there it is. Yep. Best brand and program identity. They won the Clio Awards for Rings of Power. So that's why they did it. Prestige. I'm just throwing this out there. When it comes to award season, this stuff is real and it matters to a lot of the people. It certainly matters to the creatives. It matters to the studio. Then the Emmy Awards are already getting started, even though that happens next August. Okay. Yes. Hey, everybody. Nice to have you guys here. Hey, of Gondor says that should have been the show intro. All right. Raise your hand. Let me see your emoji, because I agree. I agree that all that beautiful molten metal should have been the opening title. I mean, I kind of like what we got. It's kind of cool with the vibrations changing the images on the plate with little grains moving around. That's kind of cool. But I'm really kind of enraptured with Howard Shore's opening theme. And I've been like kind of addicted to it. I can hear it in my mind all the time. And I think Howard Shore's music, that opening theme, put over that clip of all that molten metal and all the sparks and the smoke and the water, that would have been awesome to see that as a combo. That really, really would have been. So anyways, so this is what's happening. The X-ray is one doorway using your streaming platform on the app to go inside the episode and look at some of the struggles that the actors went through and the crew. And technically, you're going to learn a heck of a lot. You're going to learn a lot. And we love having behind the scenes stuff. I will openly say that it's too bad that they didn't get our friend and really a family member of the OneRing.net. He's Michael Pellerin. I would have loved to have Michael Pellerin and his ingenious team, his production team, going to do behind the scenes stuff while they were there. It didn't work out that way. They worked with some other people, but hey, we've got this great stuff. Let's check it out. You're going to have a very reinvigorated appreciation. Say what you will about the writer's room and the mystery boxing of Halbrand and whether or not we can figure out who the stranger is. Maybe in a couple of years, we might figure out who the stranger is. You know, Blue Wizard, or is it Saruman, or is it really Gandalf? Is it really Gandalf? And they're never going to call him that. They're going to call him Olarin. What are they going to do? Instead of all that mystery boxing and all that stuff, we can talk about the writers and complain about that another time. Actually, a lot of it works really well, and some of it kind of squeaks, and it doesn't work so well, but that's just my opinion. But this behind-the-scenes stuff is really going to give you a taste for the physical, the realness of what they had to do day by day in terms of blood, sweat, and tears, craftsmanship, construction, and the execution under duress. Execution of the script, the needs of getting the logistics together of people, equipment in wilderness locations that are not easy to get people, horses, and equipment into these locations. All of this is a fascinating recipe that helps us all take a different regard. Okay? It's fair to have some ideas and criticism about the adaptation and what the writer's room was doing. That's totally fair. But I also think it's more fair to the production to separate that. Like, you know, we're like an onion, donkey. We've got layers. So Rings of Power has lots of layers, like an onion. And I think we can appreciate that there's some really different stuff going on that we never really knew about. And some of the hard work they did, just in terms of willpower, sheer force of will and resources to get the job done, give them credit for that. You know, complain as you will about the skill of the adaptation. Very intriguing to watch all this. So other news, and I want to just let you guys soak in all that behind the scenes stuff, enjoy it, and then we can come back. You know, I'm going to spend more time rewatching these episodes. My partner and I are revisiting the season 1 episodes all in a row because he's never seen them. And so I'm getting a bird's eye view of, you know, watching it fresh with a whole new person who's not a hardcore book nerd about it. He's just a really appreciative fan of good storytelling and loves the Lord of the Rings. And so I get to watch like a neutral person digest all of this Rings of Power stuff with fresh eyes. And I get to see what they like and dislike about it. It's very intriguing to get somebody else's point of view. But also in the news, remember that deal, everybody, that we heard about? The deal of the original Saul Zaentz company no longer having the rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings because the Embracer Group came in and made this major IP acquisition. And when we talk about pop culture, it's all fine and good to talk about, you know, how much you love the books and how much you love the academic approach that Tolkien took to it. But in this other world where we're at as a fandom, we also have to watch and observe and figure out our response to the business end of this. It's totally different than loving the characters and feeling absorbed into the world itself. Now the world is being handled as a business item. So check your head, get a different hat on, okay? And get a different perspective on this. The Embracer Group has now put out this first hint of what's to come during their second quarter overview. Embracer Group, I'm going to read along from this website. The new owners of Middle-earth Enterprises. Hey, journalists out there, Justin, scroll up a little bit. This really pisses me off. Middle-earth is not capital E. It is middle hyphen lowercase e. And to all of you journalists out there, whether you are a hired gun or whether you're sitting at your editor's desk for 20 odd years, I want you guys to do better as journalists. It is middle hyphen lowercase e earth. Don't do it. I don't want to see that anymore. No, don't. All right, now I'm done. Rant off. Okay. The new owners of Middle-earth Enterprises, the holding company that owns The Lord of the Rings among other Tolkien titles, have given the first hint of what they may have planned for the author's works during a presentation for their second quarter earnings report on Thursday. Boy, it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall in that room. Among the rights that Sweden-based Embracer Group now own in the LOTR, intellectual property, after purchasing Middle-earth Enterprises for an undisclosed sum from previous owner Saul Zaentz company in October, are rights to develop and make films, games, and theme park attractions, not television. As we have mentioned many times, television rights were sold as a separate deal. Prime Video has the TV rights. That is why The Rings of Power is on television, not in a theater down the road, okay? This is really intriguing to me. Although Embracer and co-founder and the CEO, who is named Lars Wingefors, wouldn't get into the specifics, he revealed that he's been consulting with all stakeholders, including film companies and business partners, about the best way to develop what he described as, quote, world-leading fantasy IP, unquote. Oh my gosh. Scrolling down a little further, Wingefors did not specify whether those stakeholders included Warner Brothers Discovery. You know how weird that is? I can't do it. It's just Warner Brothers. But I'm forced to say Warner Brothers Discovery. Why? Because of business deals, because of these bloody corporate mergers, and I now have to say Warner Brothers Discovery because it's just so weird. It's just so weird. Maybe I'm a traditionalist, whatever. It's just always going to be Warner Brothers to me. You know what? Whatever. It's ridiculous. Anyways, it says here that they may or may not have been talking to Warner Brothers Discovery, who are believed to still retain some film development rights. Now, that's an odd bit of coverage. Believed to still retain some film development rights to Lord of the Rings. That's because New Line Cinema, I should say Warner Brothers Discovery, are hard at work making this animated feature film, The War of the Rohirrim, which will be done in Japanese anime style of 2D hand-drawn animation. So that leads into the truth of that statement. That is a film project. Through their ownership of New Line Cinema, which produced Peter Jackson's film trilogy, it is unclear how these have been impacted by the sale of Middle-earth Enterprises. Embracer is primarily known for its gaming output. Video games, kids. We're not talking tabletop, although I'm that kind of guy. I love analog tabletop games, but this Embracer group has specialized in console and PC video gaming, it seems. Mobile games as well in the digital sphere, and board games and card games. Okay, all right, well, that's good. Let's see. If Embracer is going to bring out some new board games, I'm down for that. I'll be the first in line. Speaking more generally about the group's move into film and television, their CEO, Wingefors, said he's been conversing with top players in the industry and was pleased to see the excitement they have around our IPs, which, as well as LOTR, includes The Mask and Tomb Raider, among hundreds of other titles. But when asked for further news about Tolkien acquisition, he replied cryptically, quote, "Wow, that's a very interesting question. Tolkien. We could spend an hour on that. Obviously, we closed the transaction after quarter end, early October, and are now talking to all stakeholders, the film companies, the business partners, and the game companies," Wingefors expanded. Quote, we are taking the perspective of a very long-term view. How should we, together with the other stakeholders, develop this world-leading fantasy IP into the future? Gaming being one part of it, but it's too early to give color on our specific plans. Spoken like a true vague corporate guy. It's too early to give color on our specific plans. I think we're still open-minded for input into that. I think there's also very interesting conversations around other media than gaming relating to that IP. But unfortunately, I have to tell you, stay tuned for the future. Maybe. All right, well, that's very interesting. Well, I wonder what they're going to do next. I really do. It says, Embracer Group, earnings, blah, 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 blah. Middle-earth Enterprises is actually owned and operated by an Embracer Group subsidiary called Embracer Free Mode. Now, this is news to me. This is the first time I've heard of this. Free Mode, which is led by a different person, CEO Lee, I'm going to do this, Lee Guinchard, Guinchard. Okay, if there's any philologists out there, I want some help with this. Lee Guinchard, who is a gaming and entertainment company. So Free Mode is gaming and entertainment, as well as buying LOTR holding company. It also acquired limited run games and Inc. Singtrix during the second quarter. Wingafors noted during his presentation that Embracer now has four licensed Lord of the Rings games in production with external developers. Wow, that's all kinds of stuff. Wow, I wonder what's going to happen. Very intriguing. They reported a strong second quarter, net sales increasing by 190% to US $910 million from July to September 22nd. So they had the money. They had the money to spend on this. As a result, their CEO revealed Embracer Group's board of directors will launch a special review of the business. One outcome may be the board recommending that some of the group's subsidiaries, including potentially Embracer Free Mode, are spun off into separate publicly listed companies. So, stock, you want to buy stock in Free Mode? You guys better start talking to your financial advisors about whether you want to buy stocks in this stuff before it's publicly offered. Interesting. If that seems to be the best for its employees, create higher shareholder value, and improve our strategic flexibility. They've got, guess what? Embracer has gone on, it says, a wild acquisition spree. They snapped up Dark Horse Comics. Dark Horse Comics. Are you dudes kidding me? They just purchased Dark Horse Comics, which have published titles including The Mask and Stranger Things, and they also picked up video game studio Crystal Dynamics, which owns Tomb Raider. Wow. Despite the gloomy economic outlook and Swedish currency, the krona, dropping to a historic low against the US dollar in September, Embracer is still open to buying more companies. Wow. That's intense. So, excuse me. Lara Croft and young Aragorn, when? When is the Lara Croft and young Aragorn video game crossover going to happen? I think that's not too far off the possibility. All right, Justin has just told me with an interesting production note, confirmed, we can now exclusively confirm right now on this broadcast on Torn Tuesday that The Return of the King, Peter Jackson's directed multiple 11 Oscar-winning The Return of the King, will get a wide national theatrical release next year for its 20th anniversary. That's it. They didn't release Fellowship. They did not do theatrical release of Two Towers, which I think is most unfortunate, if you ask this little ent, but nobody did. But instead, they skipped over movie 1 and movie 2, and they're jumping right to an anniversary celebratory theatrical re-release of The Return of the King. That'll be next year for its 20th anniversary. Can you say, wow? Wow, that's a lot going on. That is such a lot going on, guys. Wow. So here we are, back in my living room. I'm going to check in with the chat. Terry, thank you, Terry McCory. Where can you watch the documentary Ringer's Lord of the Fans? Well, it is being re-edited at the moment. Our editor, John Welch, and our director, Carlene Cordova, are working on an upscaling because, believe it or not, the movie was released in standard def. So they're up-resing. They're going to up-res the entire film, and it's going to be awesome. It'll be re-released with a couple of trims, a new version called Ringers 2.0, and that will be available on streaming platforms and probably on some other interesting outlets, probably within the next few months, maybe next year. In any case, I am so happy to have you ask that question. Let's go on. Might this be a Fathom event in April? Hey, Garfe Mao. That's Garfe Mao in the live chat. She's one of our longtime staff members at theonering.net. Garf, Fathom events, maybe. But if it is through Fathom events, that's fine. I'm totally good with that. I'm totally good with that. I just want to say I'm going to spend my money in the theater to be with fans again in a big motion picture auditorium on a big screen, to have that feeling of seeing the Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, on a massive screen with a bunch of hardcore fans. I am so so down for that. It's so exciting. I am live on the air. I'm just trying to tell people who are calling in that I'm live on the air right now. I'm so glad you're here with us, everybody. Let's get into this. Let's get into the details. Okay, I want to see raise your hands in the chat, even if you've got the old DVDs, if you've got the old VHS tapes, if you've got, the new 4K release of The Lord of the Rings, would you still go back next year for the big 20th anniversary? Raise your hand in the chat. I want to see your emojis if you're definitely going to go to the theater to see Return of the King released. I'm there. I'm so there. I'm going to see all you hands. Okay. All right. Nice, Garth. Nice to see you. Cliff, can you talk about what is happening with the Rings of Power merchandising rights? Wow, that is an excellent, excellent question. Justin, I'm going to ask my producer backstage. Do we have any news about the merch rights for toys? Embracer, the Embracer group that we were just talking about in that article, they now own all merch rights. So I'm going to make an easy prediction for all of you right now. And I would go to Las Vegas and bet money on this prediction. I'll bet good money. Season 2, Rings of Power, Season 2, will have a flood of merch. There will be collectibles. There will be toys that are only as big as a bottle of nasal spray. And there will also be toys as big as a scented candle. And then there will be board games that look just like this. Board games like the Red Dragon Inn, a wonderful, wonderful fantasy board game, the Red Dragon Inn. And then there will be sculptures as tall as sideshow collectibles. Everything's going to happen. Believe it. There will be action figures, kids' toys, adult toys. But here's the early litmus test. Before all that stuff comes out, you're going to see it at the Toy Fair, New York City. So what we need to do is watch the news and all the press releases and the news coming out of the next New York Toy Fair, because that's when the production companies and the toy designers preview all the stuff that's going to come out later in the year for the actual marketplace. Okay. Oh, alcohol and swords are in motion for Rings of Power. Okay, there's going to be a line of booze. There will be Rings of Power alcohol. I don't know if that will be grain alcohol or whiskey or perhaps a couple of unique brews. Maybe there will be mead or beer, malt beer, and ripe meat off the bone. So maybe there'll be some kind of malt beer or some kind of, stuff. But here's the trick. Amazon cannot make anything themselves. Prime Video cannot make any merch themselves at all. Embracer can make the merch. So that will require a licensing deal. Prime Video makes a licensing deal with Embracer Group. They share the licensing. The lawyers argue about it. A couple of months later, their legal teams are still arguing about it. And then they get their stuff settled down. When the dust is settled and they get the licensing done, Embracer Group and Prime Video will make a deal. And then, clearly, you're going to have to keep your eyes on the New York Toy Fair, because that is the industry event where we will learn everything about it. Okay? Little birdies landed on our windowsill recently. More spies of Saruman. Yes, quite. Crebine from Dunland. The Crebine from Dunland have been landing on my windowsill. And they've been telling us that Amazon wants to do merch. Prime Video really wants to do merch hardcore, but it's complicated. It's very, very complicated. And that is the reason why. The reason why is because the Embracer Group has the rights. And so they've got to work it out. They just have to work that out. We reported back in, by the way, Embracer Group owns all merchandise, all of it, everything, bar none. Even if it's a box of cereal, I don't care if it's a box of cereal or it's, Rings of Power gummy candies. I don't care. All that merch even if it's refrigerator magnets or bumper stickers or keychains, all of it is Embracer Group, very specifically. And I hope they work it out at some point. Question from the live chat. Grogu didn't have any merch at the launch of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus in order to keep it secret. This is true. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I'd forgotten that. It's very true. Got to remember that. Is there anything in this show that was worth keeping secret? I love that question. And I don't know if I can be intellectually honest or I don't know, man. I can hear Justin laughing. I'll tell you what. Whoo, I don't know. I don't know if there was anything worth keeping secret, because if you've been watching our broadcast, you know that I'm a fan of get rid of, let's just say I'm not a fan of the mystery boxing. I was not a fan of being led around by the narrative nose, leading me by the nose from one mystery to another inexplicable mystery. I'm a much bigger fan of dramatic irony and being the audience member that knows what's going on while the characters on stage do not know what's going on. I prefer that. That's just me. Hey, and that's okay. And that's fine. That's fine. Everybody has their own tastes in narrative style. And I guess that's just me. But no, I don't think there was any secret that was worth keeping in terms of merchandise. I guess we'll find out whether the stranger is really Olorin / Gandalf. But Matt, Nerd of the Rings, and quite a few other fan theories, talk to Corey Olson about the Tolkien professor, talk to him about it, and he'll say it's a very tantalizing idea that the stranger might be one of the blue wizards. And as I have hypothesized for months, I have hypothesized that there might be another meteor man. And if that happens in season 2, then you would have what? You would have LOTR and Palando. You would have your 2 blue wizards if they do that. Anyways, but here we go. Back to the live chat. Hello, of Gondor. You're so funny. I love when the viewer realizes what's going on moments before the character on screen does. It gives me chills. Yeah, isn't that how you build suspense? Isn't that how you build suspense? Anyways, whatever. Yeah, Iravandi, I agree. It would be really cool if we had our 2 blues. I would fall head over heels in love with brand new characterizations of new wizards that we've never seen before. The blue wizards. Where are they? What's going on? I really want to know that. But that's just me. And Cecilia, you might be right on point, my dear. You might be. Cecilia in the chat says, I think that the stranger is Radagast for how he healed the tree. Maybe he is. But he also killed those fireflies and he felt bad about it. Maybe that will lead Radagast to wanting to take care, because Radagast was a Maiar spirit under Yavanna, if I'm not mistaken. So, all right, Wayne Yip. All right. Our director from Rings of Power, Wayne Chi Yip, has, in interviews, recently made the implication that the stranger is not a blue wizard. He didn't say specifically, but he hinted at that. So maybe we'll just have to stick with the whole Olorin concept. All right. Okay. Good question, Stephen Messina in the chat. Why is Sauron not Anatar in the Rings of Power? All right, Justin, is that a licensing thing? Is that really specifically a licensing thing, that they could not license the word Anatar unless there was some special dispensation that was given by Simon Tolkien? Now, it's become clear that the names that they're using are names that are in the appendices. Excuse me. You know what? I wish I could grab my copy of The Return of the King. It's way over there. I'd have to go off camera and run and grab it. But look up my thesaurus. Yeah. All right. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to grab my copy of The Lord of the Rings and give me just 2 seconds. I promise you, I'll be right back. And I'm going to look up if I can see Anatar in the appendices. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Alouette, gentille alouette, alouette, gentille plumeret. Got it. Look at this. The Tolkien thesaurus. It's the first place I'm going to look. Thank you, the late, great Richard E. Blackwelder. And a very special thanks to Douglas A. Anderson, Tolkien scholar and friend of the OneRing.net. Thank you, Douglas A. Anderson, for this gift of the Tolkien thesaurus. I do appreciate it so much. He's the guy who did the annotated Hobbit, by the way. Okay, A-L-M, allegiance, allow, Amon Din. Ooh, amusement. Amusement, the word amusement, just for trivia, if anybody comes to you and says, how many times does the word amusement appear in The Lord of the Rings? You can say technically 4. 4 times. 4 times. Who? Anarion? Ancient. Ooh, ancient appears many, many, many times. Okay, I do not see Anatar. Anger. Anger. Animal. Anguish. Anon. Anoon. Anoon. Anatar. Nope. Don't see it. It's not in the thesaurus. But is it in the appendices? Yep. It's probably here in the Tale of Years. Probably right here in the Tale of Years. Yep. 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 Let's see. Gil-galad refuses to treat with him. Sauron endeavors to seduce the Eldar. Gil-galad refuses to treat with him, but the smiths of Eregion are won over. And this is where we are in the Rings of Power story. The Numenorians begin to make permanent havens. Well, actually, they squished it all up. Rebellion, division of the Numenorian begins. Pelargir is built. Repentance of Tar Palantir. Civil war in Numenor. Sauron is taken as prisoner. I don't see his name as Anatar. Nope, I don't see it. I don't see it in the appendices. So maybe that's the answer. Okay? Maybe that is the answer. Maybe they can't call him Anatar and they called him Halbrand instead. And maybe that was because of a licensing issue. Really, might have been. I get the feeling that Anatar appeared in the Silmarillion and in Unfinished Tales. All right, news, breaking news. Amazon lost $10 billion this year on its Echo Alexa, which is the portable speaker system that plays music and connects to your home system and sets a cooking alarm for you. Oh, I'm boiling eggs. Set an alarm, Alexa. I don't want to overboil my eggs. Set the timer. Okay, so they lost $10 billion on this electronic speaker / AI. We recommend finding a rare Rings of Power Echo while you still can. Yes, we do. Pretty soon, there's not going to be any more Rings of Power Echo. Look at that. How about that? Bye-bye, Rings of Power Echo. I bet you on the secondary market, on eBay, it's going to show up and be kind of brutal. Really kind of brutal. Okay, Otaku Senpai in the live chat tells us they could only use the word Anatar if they got special permission. Well, Simon Tolkien showed up on the red carpet in London. He's the family estate. He is part of the Tolkien estate that is in partnership with Amazon Prime, with Prime Video, rather. So maybe it's not too far off that they could do that they could get a deal with Simon Tolkien. Let me look in the appendix. Just in the index, excuse me, the index. Here's the index. Index of songs and verses. Index of names. Aldor, Amroth, Anarion, and Calagon the Black. Okay, that's interesting. Within the pages of The Lord of the Rings, and Caligon the Black gets a mention, but Anatar is not mentioned. And that's it. And then it moves right on to Appledore, and then Aragorn, and then Asphaloth. Norolin, Asphaloth, Norolin. So I guess not. Cliff, let me borrow that thesaurus and digitize it into a database so we can all access it. Isn't somebody working on that already? Is the Digital Tolkien Project already working on that? But I agree. This Tolkien thesaurus should be digitized. It really, really should be digitized. It's remarkable. All right, before we get to the close of our show, and I think we're going to do a little bit of green dragon gossip at the very end of the show, but let me put a trivia question, all right? I'll send you a beautiful Rings of Power sticker, all right? Here's a prize. I'm going to give away a prize, and I will drop this in the mail to you. The Rings of Power sticker, big, beautiful sticker that you can put on the back of your MacBook. And you can win this if you can tell me the number of times, you need to accurately guess. What is the number of times that the word dog, or plural, dogs, appears in The Lord of the Rings? Okay. I want to hear it in the chat. Who is the first person in the chat to take a guess? Drop me an email. No, not 87, not 33. Garth. Okay. Send me an email. My email is quickbeam@theonering.net. All right. Quickbeam at, and yes, there's some dogs with Farmer Maggot, but how many times precisely is the word singular or plural, dog or dogs, in The Lord of the Rings? And I'm going to send you this lovely Rings of Power decal sticker. No, don't tell me in the chat, guys. Hello, Daisy Kim. How are you? Email me at, quickbeam@theonering.net. Okay, Otaku, the answer is always 42. The answer is always 42. Okay, now for you folks who are out there, big time fantasy fans, when it comes to 1980s fantasy, we're sitting in the golden time right now because Willow is coming back on the Disney Plus. Willow is coming back, believe it or not. The Dark Crystal, which was so phenomenal and very impactful for many people in 1982, has, as of a year and a half ago, been successfully brought back on Netflix. Okay, all you 80s fantasy nerds who are having the best time with Stranger Things, it's because Stranger Things is very successfully tapping into that nostalgia that all of us Gen X, and I have to admit it, I'm a Gen X nerd, just like Justin. Justin is, well, maybe Justin's a couple of years younger than me. Maybe he's almost a Gen X nerd. But all this great 80s fantasy stuff is coming back strong. And it's an amazing time to be a nerd. Great time to be a nerd. We've got the Disney Plus series, Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, taking us back to experience, wow, those feelings. Criterion Collection, which is, again, half price at all Barnes & Noble around the country. Get your hands on this. This is Time Bandits, Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits. It's amazing. But aside from Terry Gilliam and how amazing this is, there's a 40th anniversary of a very special fantasy film, and all of you 80s nerds like me are going to recognize what an extraordinary animated feature film this is. It is called The Last Unicorn, and I'm going to tell you that it was created and animated by Japanese animators who would later on form Studio Ghibli. It was produced out of New York City and animated in Tokyo, Japan, by Rankin and Bass. Okay, Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass, who recently passed away, sadly. Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr., man, they were geniuses. They brought together So many amazing stop motion animation Christmas specials. The Year Without a Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But they also brought to televisions everywhere. In the late 70s, they did the animated adaptation of The Hobbit, and The Hobbit was a wonderfully successful animation. They also did, excuse me, animated a feature-length Return of the King. But right now it is the 40th anniversary of The Last Unicorn, written by Peter S. Beagle. Why would you know the name of fantasy author Peter S. Beagle? He wrote A Fine and Private Place. He wrote The Last Unicorn and many other fantastic books and stories. His work, tied to The Lord of the Rings, is pretty specific because he was the guy not only who wrote The Last Unicorn, he wrote and rewrote the Ralph Bakshi animated The Lord of the Rings that was released by United Artists in 1978. So it's all connected. Peter S. Beagle, who I interviewed, I had a great sit-down interview with Peter Beagle many, many, many times. And he's the guy who worked with Ralph Bakshi to write that really, really intense and really cool psychedelic adaptation from 1978. So congratulations to you, Peter S. Beagle. You're still with us. You're still one of the best American fantasists out there and a longtime friend of the OneRing.net. Congratulations on the 40th anniversary of The Last Unicorn, animated by Rankin and Bass and the studio animators that would become Studio Ghibli. A little bit of trivia before we leave you tonight. Who was the voice of the lead villain? You know who the voice of the lead villain in The Last Unicorn was? It's Christopher Lee. That's right. Check it out. Get your hands on The Last Unicorn. Get that beautiful restoration that they have on Blu-ray. Mia Farrow, young Jeff Bridges, Alan Arkin, a delicious Angela Lansbury. Angela Lansbury, who also recently passed away, and Christopher Lee and Alan Arkin, all these great voices in The Last Unicorn. It's such a stellar cast. Now, I can't say for sure that Mr. Bridges can sing or Mia Farrow can sing, but there's some really cool songs from the band America. And so get your hands on The Last Unicorn. Happy 40th anniversary to The Last Unicorn. It's really, really cool stuff. And Cecilia, Pipsky is telling us that you were born in 1956. You're a Hobbit boomer. I love it. We have Hobbit boomers. Okay. I'm glad we've got some of the younger kids with us. We've got some of the original Hobbit generation. We've got, me, the Gen Xers sitting right in the middle. It's nice to have all of these different strata of fandoms. Lovely to have you guys with us. Old and new and everybody in between. This is the OneRing.net, and it's community. It's community like that makes us special. And I'm really glad you guys have been with us for this interesting little talk show. Final notes. Keep your eyes on any news that's coming out from the Embracer group. I find that kind of tantalizing, but it also makes me really nervous because that's where we're going to get news about the possibility of a theme park or a nature park. Very recently, and you can find some beautiful videos on YouTube, check out the Studio Ghibli Botanical Nature Park that was just opened up to the public in Japan. Check that out and imagine a Middle-earth theme park that is based on an ecosystem and not on thrill rides. Imagine kind of a different artistic and maybe more naturalist, a naturalist approach to a Middle-earth theme park. And if you're looking at a good example, we could look at the Studio Ghibli theme park that opened up in the suburbs of Tokyo in Japan recently. Good stuff. All right, time to say goodnight, everyone. This is our show. We had an hour and 15 minutes, maybe an hour and 11 minutes of a really good time because you guys are awesome. Just a wonderful audience. And like I said, it's community like you guys that makes the OneRing.net special. Please continue to join us on our message boards over at the main website. We have some really cool news and stories that are coming out there. And better yet, join us on our Discord. Really dynamic and satisfying Discord channel. Really good stuff. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at QuickBeam2000. Personally, you can find me there. And if you want to follow us on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, everything that is the OneRing.net, you just take out the dot. It'll be the OneRing.net. And you can follow us on all of our social channels. And that's our show. That's our excellent show. One last note, really satisfying. And the reason why is because you don't have to go searching through 7 or 8 different volumes to look for where you scribbled a little pencil mark on the page to find all that stuff about who was there in Numenor, what were they doing, who was the ruler at the time, when did they die, when did Sauron first show up and be brought back as prisoner to Numenor. What is all this stuff going on? This is it. Brian Sibley's late editing masterpiece. This is probably one of the most significant things that I think Mr. Brian Sibley will be contributing to our fandom, because this makes it a real easy read, a much easier read out of a lot of difficult stuff to get the full comprehensive picture of the Fall of Numenor. And why? Because for the next many, many years, all of us are going to be taking a trip down into that story, the Fall of Numenor and the Rings of Power, on our ongoing watchings of future seasons, which are right now in production in the UK. That's right. We wish all of you a lot of good luck, all of you wonderful people working on the sets, rebuilding the sets and bringing the costumes and the paint department and the carpentry and everybody working together in the UK. We wish you best of luck as you get ready filming season 2 of The Rings of Power. And it is Thanksgiving week, of course. We want to wish you all here in America, who's doing the whole Thanksgiving thing, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And next weekend, believe it or not, right around the bloody corner, in the first weekend of December, we're going to be there at Los Angeles Comic-Con. If you're here in California, drive on down. Come visit us in Los Angeles. Come to LA Comic-Con, which will be at the convention center downtown. Really great convention. It used to be called Kamikaze. Justin, you remember that? It used to be called Stan Lee's Kamikaze. That was the whole thing. And then it got rebranded and became LA Comic-Con. So come and join us next week. We have a presentation panel talking about dispatches from Middle-earth. All those details are going to be up on the convention website. It's an affordable ticket. It's not that hard to get in. It's way, way fun and a lot less problematic than dealing with San Diego Comic-Con. So come and join us. That'll be December 3rd. More details are coming up on our socials. Look for those interesting details coming up. We're going to talk all about it. So, Lord of the Rings is a Christmas movie. The Hobbit trilogy is a Thanksgiving movie. And those are our parting thoughts. You know what? Does anybody remember from Saturday Night Live, Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey? Well, I think that we just had one right now. We're going to end our show with a deep thought by Justin Sewell. And that deep thought is that Lord of the Rings is a Christmas movie, but with all that food and getting to the inside of Bilbo's cupboards and his pantry and that beautiful, beautiful meal that they have in An Unexpected Journey, I agree with that. The Hobbit trilogy is a Thanksgiving movie. Save Lord of the Rings for Christmas. I agree with that. All right, thanks, everybody. Super good stuff. Have a really nice time. Travel safely if you're traveling. And if you're not, then make sure you give thanks for that most precious of gifts that we still have, and that is the gift of life. We are alive, and we're blessed to be alive amongst friends and family and people who support us all together now. We're going to look out for one another, and we're going to stay safe this holiday season. I promise you. And I want to say thank you to the audience for being with us. Once again, you are the faithful community that makes it all worthwhile. And thank you, Justin, for behind the scenes, pulling the levers, pushing the buttons, and making this whole technical jiggery pokery actually work. And I hope you feel a lot better, Justin. Feel better, and I hope that laryngitis goes away very, very soon. And thank you, everyone, for being with us. I hope you all have a wonderful night. So I would like to say good night and good luck, or better yet, buenos noches y buena suerte. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.